9:13 p.m. April 27th, 2025, Europe went dark. In a single chilling moment, the familiar glow of city lights vanished from the map, plunging millions into uncertainty. The lights flickered in Lisbon, then vanished, leaving the city's winding streets eerily silent and shrouded in darkness. Paris, once a city of lights, became a sea of shadows. The Eiffel Tower, a beacon for generations, stood invisible against the night, as Parisians searched for answers in the gloom. From Madrid to Brussels, the hum of civilization sputtered and died. Entire capitals faded into obscurity, their vibrant energy replaced by a haunting stillness. A continent plunged into an unprecedented blackout. From space, Europe's familiar constellation of lights simply disappeared, swallowed by the void. Panic swelled as screens went blank and the digital world went silent. Families huddled together, their only connection to the outside world severed in an instant. This was no ordinary power outage. Emergency services struggled to respond, their sirens echoing through empty, powerless streets. This was an electrical apocalypse, an event that would change the fate of a continent and the world forever. The blackout's impact was immediate and honestly terrifying. Within moments, entire neighborhoods were plunged into pitch darkness, leaving people disoriented and fearful. The sudden loss of power sent a wave of panic through the city as families scrambled to find flashlights and candles, and the uncertainty of what was happening began to set in. In Barcelona, a high-speed train carrying hundreds of passengers shuddered to a halt, stranding them in the darkness between stations. Passengers pressed their faces to the windows, searching for any sign of light or movement outside, while the silence inside the train was broken only by anxious whispers and the hum of emergency lights. Hospitals switched to emergency generators, their life-saving equipment hanging by a thread. Doctors and nurses rushed through dimly lit corridors, working tirelessly to keep patients stable, while the uncertainty of how long the backup power would last weighed heavily on everyone's minds. In Paris, thousands were trapped in elevators, their cries for help echoing in the darkness. Emergency responders worked around the clock, prying open elevator doors and guiding frightened people to safety, as the city's infrastructure struggled to cope with the chaos. The streets, usually teeming with life, were eerily empty, illuminated only by the pale glow of the moon. The familiar sounds of traffic and laughter were replaced by an unsettling silence as the city held its breath, waiting for the lights to return. Rumors swirled as quickly as the fear. Was it a cosmic event? A solar flare of unprecedented magnitude? Had a rogue state launched a devastating cyberattack, crippling the continent? Social media became a breeding ground for conspiracy theories, each more outlandish than the last. Governments scrambled for answers, desperate to reassure their citizens and restore order. But the truth, when it emerged, was even more unsettling than any speculation. The culprit behind the chaos was not a weapon of mass destruction, nor a cyber attack, but a force we believed we had finally mastered: nature itself. In our pursuit of a cleaner, greener future, we sometimes forget that the very elements we harness can also turn against us, with consequences we never anticipated. It began with a sudden, dramatic drop in solar power generation across Spain. Thick clouds rolled in unexpectedly, blocking out the sun and plunging solar farms into near darkness. This unforeseen event triggered a chain reaction, a cascading failure that rippled through the interconnected European power grid, catching operators off guard. Spain, on that fateful day, was heavily dependent on solar energy to meet its electricity needs, but with backup from traditional sources like gas and nuclear power either offline or insufficient, the grid was left dangerously exposed. Operators scrambled to respond, but the system was already buckling under the immense strain. The blackout didn't stop at Spain's borders. Like falling dominoes, the failure spread rapidly, plunging city after city into darkness. The event exposed just how fragile Europe's energy infrastructure had become, especially as more countries leaned heavily on intermittent renewable sources. For millions, the blackout was more than an inconvenience. It was a wake-up call. Streets emptied, homes went dark, and families huddled by candlelight, suddenly aware of how much they relied on a stable power supply. The vision of a carbon-free world now seemed fraught with new, terrifying risks. As Europe races towards its ambitious net zero goals, the question looms larger than ever. Is the continent's energy future one of unstoppable progress, or are we heading toward a new era of uncertainty and peril? After the blackout of 2025, the answer remains unsettlingly unclear. The lessons learned that day continue to haunt policymakers, engineers and citizens alike, forcing Europe to confront the true cost and complexity of its green energy revolution.